Welcome to today's video. Get ready to dive into a world of humor and laughter, where online pickup lines aren't just ignored, but transformed into clever and witty responses. If you've ever been in the world of digital flirting, you've probably encountered those attempts at flirting that are completely uncreative or just try to be romantic without success. And, let's be honest, these attempts fail miserably, often resulting in responses that are so funny, they might even turn into memes. In today's video, we'll explore 11 examples of witty responses to pickup lines that backfired, responses so hilarious that you'll rethink your next message, and maybe even share this video with that person who always sends you online pickup lines. But remember, before trying any of these, you'd better practice some creativity. So, let's get started. When someone sends the classic, "Hey, stranger," might seem like a friendly way to reconnect. But the truth is, it's a lazy attempt to grab attention, especially if you've been ignored for days, weeks, or even months. After all, if the person hasn't contacted you until now, why show up out of nowhere with a simple, "Hey"? The best response to this was, "Hey, deluded." This response is direct but very clever, cutting through the lazy attempt without being harsh. By responding this way, the person made it clear that they weren't willing to engage in a half-hearted, uncreative conversation and, at the same time, did it in a funny way. This response made it clear that to be noticed, the flirt would need to be more original. And that's not just fun. It's also a great way to prevent the other person from belittling you with such a dull attempt. Now, let's move on to one of the most common pickup lines. Don't you think being too beautiful should be illegal? Well, we can agree that this type of compliment sounds more like a flirtation trick than a real compliment, right? The problem here is the lack of originality. How many times have you heard this? And the response was right on the mark. Maybe. But it seems like your lack of creativity is also illegal. This response didn't just dismantle the pickup line, but made a humorous critique of the flirt, showing that creativity is more important than empty compliments. Instead of falling into the game of romance without substance, the person used irony to make the pickup line feel ridiculous and also made the flirt reconsider their approach in a funny and relaxed way. This type of response is highly effective because it not only ignores the lazy attempt, but also teaches the other person a lesson in creativity. We've reached one of the simplest and most direct flirting attempts. Let's hang out sometime. Well, not everyone has the same type of interest, and when someone asks this without more context, it can seem a bit vague. After all, if the person were truly interested, why wouldn't they make a more personal or well-thought-out invitation? And the response that came was, at the very least, hilarious. Sure, just schedule it for Never Never Land. With this response, the person didn't just turn down the invitation, but did so in a genius way. The reference to Never Never Land completely cut the romantic attempt and made it clear that no effort would be made. This type of response is brilliant because, in addition to being funny, it completely breaks any expectations the other person might have about taking the situation seriously, without making things uncomfortable. If someone is trying to push you into something, a good joke like this can be enough to show that you're not interested without making anyone feel bad. The classic, "Hey, princess," that compliment that tries to put someone on a pedestal. We know that this type of phrase, no matter how romantic it may seem, can come across as a bit superficial. Often, the person isn't truly interested in who you are, but is just trying to be polite or kind. But the response to this pickup line was simply perfect. "Princess, how about which? Because I'll leave you with no chance." Instead of accepting the compliment, the person flipped the metaphor, showing that they weren't willing to be put in a passive role. The idea of empowering oneself with the figure of a witch rather than a princess was not only creative, but also fun. A response full of personality and without leaving any doubt about what the person wanted. By joking with the princess stereotype, the person made it clear that they weren't interested in being placed in that role. This not only made the situation more fun, but it also empowered the responder, making it clear that they weren't at the mercy of the other's empty pickup line. When someone says, "You're the sun of my day," they may truly want to express something romantic, but the phrase is so overused that it loses any real meaning. And the response was so creative and funny. Then that's why I'm wearing sunglasses. Honestly, I prefer the shade. The use of sunglasses here was a simple but brilliant way to cut the compliment without sounding rude. Instead of falling for the person's attempt at creating a metaphor, the response with humor showed that the person wasn't interested in being the center of attention, but rather having fun with the situation. The shade was a clever metaphor to distance oneself from the cliché, and the person even showed their style instead of being offended. This type of response is extremely effective because it breaks an attempt at romance in a light and funny way, without making the situation uncomfortable. Now, who hasn't heard that simple, "Can I take you out sometime?" When someone asks this, it's often just a way to test the other person's response without much thought behind it. And the most clever response that came was, "Sure, but you have to bring your lack of awareness too." Here, instead of responding with the simple, "No, thanks," the person flipped the game with a funny and incisive response, pointing out that, in addition to the invitation, the person should bring some good sense and creativity. By cutting the pickup line with this humorous touch, the response was not only smart, but also challenged the flirt to be more original. This approach, full of humor and intelligence, allowed the person to maintain control of the conversation and ensure that the situation didn't feel forced or awkward. And by doing so, they also gave a lesson in creativity to the one who was trying to win them over with an empty invitation. When someone says, "Can I be your hero?" it's often an attempt to put themselves in a position of power, almost as if they need to show they're special. The response to this line was, without a doubt, a masterpiece. "No need. I already have life insurance." This type of response transforms a plea to show strength and security into a joke. Without being harsh, the person didn't need a hero because they were already taking care of themselves. This self-affirming humor lightened the situation and made it clear that the person didn't need a hero, rendering the flirt unnecessary. "You already know I'm in love with you, right?" When someone makes this statement, it's often a way to try to force an emotional connection that, deep down, might be very superficial. And the response that came was undoubtedly unique. "I didn't know, but now that I do, I'll go find a very far place to hide." Instead of feeling pressured by the declaration, the person simply backed out in a humorous way, cutting the situation with a lightness that made it clear they weren't interested, without making a scene. This response flipped the flirting attempt on its head, turning an awkward situation into something shareable and funny. By doing this, the person didn't just reject the proposal creatively, but also lightened any potential discomfort with humor, something everyone can appreciate. Finally, we have the classic pickup line, "You're the most amazing person I've ever met." This may seem like a genuine compliment, but most of the time, it's just an attempt to win someone over quickly and without context. And the response that came was, without a doubt, one of a kind. "Amazing. I'm Batman. Just more realistic, and without the cape." This response turned a generic compliment into a moment of humor, challenging the flirt to be more specific if they were really interested. The use of the Batman character here was a clever move to take the flirt out of their comfort zone and show that, in addition to being creative, the response was sharp. By using humor and pop culture intelligently, the person who responded not only cut the flirt in a funny way, but also made sure to show that they weren't fooled by empty words. These examples show that pickup lines don't always need to be dismissed with rude or cold responses. It's possible to respond with humor and intelligence, and these witty replies are a great way to maintain control of the conversation while laughing at the situation. After all, creativity is an excellent tool when it comes to online interactions, and when someone gets it wrong, a good dose of humor can be the best way to turn the situation around. So, next time someone tries a dull pickup line, remember these examples and nail those hilarious responses. And if you liked this, don't forget to like and share this video with your friends, so more people can learn how to respond wittily. See you in the next video.